Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Good evening from Japan and good afternoon everyone in Wales. My name is Dr. Sarah Louisa Birchley and I'm a professor at Toyo Gakuen University in Tokyo, Japan, and I'm a board member of GlobalWelsh. And I'm here today to share with you some research and to open a discussion on what is untapped capital, the role of diaspora investment, specifically in the future of tech. So over the next 45 minutes, I'm with you to provide an overview of diaspora investment, and we're going to hear from 4 exceptional entrepreneurs. Today, I'm joined by David Buttress, the CEO of Just Eat, the former CEO of Just Eat and venture partner at 83 North, and 3 Welsh tech entrepreneurs, Dan Swygart, CEO of Alpaca, Alison Ettridge, CEO and founder at Talent Intuition, and Eamon Tuhami, founder of X8IQ, to discuss their experience, share their journeys, and explore why and how diaspora investment and how harnessing Hiraeth could become an increasingly important part of the Welsh business economy. So for those of you who might not be familiar yet with GlobalWelsh, we've had a few sessions during the course of Wales Tech Week. We are Wales's diaspora network. It's a not-for-profit organisation, grassroots, privately funded community, which is driven by our passion for Wales. Through the celebration and achievement of the power of Hiraeth, GlobalWelsh's goal is to maximise Wales's economic potential by connecting the 3 million people inside Wales with the 3 million people living outside Wales. So there's the impression that Wales is often overlooked on the UK and European investor circuits, making raising private seed capital a challenge for many Welsh businesses. And this is where we think the Welsh diaspora can help. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So if you think about the diaspora, that's anybody that's living outside of their home country. And these people have a sense of identity and belonging that's shaped by their migration experiences. So I'm originally from Cwmbran, but I've been living in Japan for almost the last 20 years. And so diaspora members, like me, are embedded not only in their country of origin, Wales for me, but also in their country of residence. And we're familiar with the concept of financial remittances when people living outside their home country send money back to their family in their home country. But diaspora direct investments are different type of investments that come from companies or individuals that are connected to the diaspora, and they have or they want to provide opportunities back in their home country. So DDI, direct diaspora investment, can drive part of foreign direct investment, specifically investments connected to networks. Diaspora networks, coupled with diversity of this type of population, means that these individuals can recognize unique business opportunities. We have these networks in Wales and outside Wales, but we're not quite yet optimizing them. So there are various engagement strategies when we are dealing with the diaspora and investment. Each country has different strategies. Countries like Taiwan are doing well, Chile is doing well, Mexico. But we in Wales, we can do better. So all of these people that are living outside of Wales have a desire to reconnect. And they also have a desire, we think, to invest. So investment opportunities, coupled with knowledge, expertise, and mentorship, are things that Welsh startups could benefit from, particularly in the tech space. So GlobalWelsh, as an organization, recognizes the importance of the diaspora. And through our Connect platform, which is how we facilitate diaspora engagement, we can have a database where we can encourage discussion, engagement, mentoring, and hopefully investment. So GlobalWelsh was responsible for kicking off Wales's first foray into facilitating diaspora direct investment in July 2019. Some of you may be familiar with the launch of our GlobalWelsh Investor Portal. It offers a shop window of the most innovative and ambitious startups in Wales. And our goal is to help connect them to the diaspora. Yet, how can we mobilize more DDI, diaspora direct investment? So what we did at GlobalWelsh was to conduct a small feasibility study to find out, is there an appetite for a tech startup fund that is funded by the diaspora? We had 4 main goals. First one was to find out, what does the diaspora already know about investment opportunities in Wales? So all of those people living like me outside of Wales, what do they know about what's going on inside Wales? Secondly, we wanted to see if there was an appetite for a kind of direct diaspora investment fund. What would motivate people to invest in that kind of fund? What would demotivate them? And we wanted to help raise awareness about GlobalWelsh. So we conducted a study last year in late October, early November, and we sent a survey of 20 questions out to our members via social media and our social media channels. We had 153 respondents, so not a great survey, but it was significant enough to be able to pull some pretty good conclusions from. So what did we find? So we had 80% of our respondents were Welsh by origin. 20% were what we call Welsh by association. So these people are people who have maybe studied in Wales, they might have been to Welsh universities, or they were working in Wales. So they have some kind of affinity to Wales. 87% of these people were in employment, particularly in the finance, technology, and consulting industries. And 50% identified themselves as high net worth individuals or sophisticated investors. 72% were UK taxpayers. So when we look at these group of people, what were their responses when we asked them about investing in Wales? Well, there is an appetite. That's the most important point to establish for now. 51% were specifically interested in investing in a tech startup firm. 100% were interested in investing in general. When we asked how much they were prepared to invest, we managed to gather a pool of approximately £2 million that could potentially be used to fund startups, tech startups in Wales. But why do people want to do this? Why do people outside of Wales want to invest back into Wales? Well, they have a strong sense of pride and they want to support their homeland. They have a desire to invest in social and economic development. And the majority of them are ready to invest right now. But there are some barriers that are stopping them from investing. So let's take a look at some of those now. These are all perceived barriers to investment. And what we found was that communication, specifically, is one of the biggest issues. People outside of Wales aren't getting a strong enough message about what's going on inside Wales. And there's a perceived lack of entrepreneurial culture and education in Wales, and a perceived lack of high quality talent. But even just being on this call, you'll see some of the amazing Welsh talent that we have. And so thankfully, organizations like Wales Tech Week that are making these types of events global is helping to encourage and show the diaspora what is actually happening. So as well as cultural issues, there are some perceived issues with government. Maybe people outside Wales are not familiar or not comfortable knowing specifically what's going on in terms of independence discussions, Brexit, trade agreements. So these kinds of things are also perceived barriers for people outside of Wales wanting to invest inside Wales. Additional perceived barriers we found were some of the older generation. They've retired, they have funds, they would like to invest into Wales, but they don't have the information because they're not on some of the social media or the technology platforms that are helping to fuel these kinds of discussions about investment. So there's a little gap between the access to information and people who want to invest. Two other perceived barriers were a lack of a deep pool of co-investor capital and a lack of a public-private investment framework. So how can we encourage people to invest more? The further incentives to invest include specifically forums where we can share more information, such as today. So we're very grateful that we have this opportunity to discuss this today. Greater government recognition of what the diaspora can provide in terms of this type of investment. And then connected to that, some economic incentives that would encourage people to want to invest back into Wales. So the potential investors want some kind of fund that's transparent, simple, and straightforward. They want access to information and a fund manager that they can trust with an excellent track record and expertise in the field. They're also interested in investing focus past the seed stage. So if we can fulfill these kinds of issues, there may be ways that we can get extra financial investment into tech startups in Wales from the diaspora. So there are many benefits to diaspora direct investments. So aside from the obvious, which is financial, there's also the possibility of brain gain, the opposite of brain drain, where we can still engage with the talents of the people outside of Wales. There are opportunities for technology transfer, and there's the possibility that investing in something familiar is seen as safe to these entrepreneurs and potential investors. So the diaspora is well networked and able to keep abreast of what is going on through organizations such as GlobalWelsh. We have that now through our Connect platform, and our soon to be launched business membership will help us to share information much more widely. And of course, money attracts money. So setting up a DDI fund could attract more FDI in the future in other forms. And a diaspora fund could also attract collaboration from other funds and organizations. So we also need to think about how to involve private companies to engage with the diaspora and implement DDI programs that can support and attract tech investment into Wales. So we're looking for a forum to get more information to people outside of Wales and potential investors, have a fund that is run by experts, and have some kind of financial incentives for these investors. So the appetite, we know, is there. The appetite is there, and it's untapped capital, we believed. But the next step is how can we harness this funding? So what we're going to do in this session today is to think about how we can attract, harness, communicate with and through the diaspora to encourage them to invest into tech in Wales. So we're going to hear from 4 exceptional entrepreneurs and hear their experiences of raising funds in Wales, their views on investment, and how to overcome and perceive the barriers that diaspora appear to have about investing back into Wales. So now I'd like to introduce you to our panelists for today. So let me stop sharing there. I would like to introduce you to our panelists who are joining us from different parts of Wales and the United Kingdom, I believe. I think I'm the only person that's overseas today. So let's have a look. Hopefully everyone can see and join us soon. I'd like to introduce, first of all, David Buttress, who is our partner at 83 North. Hi, David. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Very good. So David is a partner in 83 North, a global venture capital firm which has offices in Israel and London. And David was, until the 31st of March 2007, CEO of Just Eat and was appointed as a non-executive director in August 2017. David joined Just Eat in March 2006 to start its UK business after having a successful career with Coca-Cola. So David holds a bachelor degree in law and business from Middlesex University and the Middlesex University School of Business, and an honorary doctorate degree in entrepreneurship. In 2014, David was named Entrepreneur of the Year at the Investor All-Stars Award and was listed as one of the London Evening Standard's top 1,000 influential people. In 2015 and 2016 and 17, he was named as one of Britain's most influential people in the Debrett's 500. So thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Thank you. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Alison Ettridge, the CEO of Talent Intuition. Here's Alison. Hi,
Sarah.
Alison. Lovely to see you.
Likewise.
Alison is CEO and chief believer at Talent Intuition, living the entrepreneur's dream. Alison loves helping HR directors take data and insights into the board to validate their views, helping them to convince their leaders and turning them into believers. Alison has spent 20 plus years in the world of people and talent, from her first job in executive recruitment to sales at monster.com, and then into the world of talent research and intelligence, where she spotted the opportunity for strategies to bridge the gap between strategy and execution with data. Alison enjoys leading the amazing TI team, who all have a passion to change the way people view the workforce and workplace. Her passion is knowing that we are genuinely driving change in our clients' organizations for the better and doing it with data. I think it's all sound amazing. I want to work for your company.
You're welcome. You can be a believer.
Thank you. I already am. Thank you so much. And next, I'd like to introduce Eamon Tuhami. Hi, Eamon. Hi.
Hey, Sarah.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Excellent. So Eamon has recently exited, founder of Motivy.com, investor and NED with over 20 years of experience in establishing and growing businesses within corporates, startups and scale-ups. Hi, Eamon. Lovely to meet you. And finally, we have Dan Swygart. Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great to see you. So Dan is the founder of Alpaca, a guest speaker and lecturer on how to raise investment, and works on deal flow with some of the largest VCs in Silicon Valley and London. So introducing them to the best startups and LPs. So as you can see, we have a really stellar lineup. And hopefully we'll all be able to get lots of questions, not only from me as the chair, but also from the audience. So if you can see on the right hand side, you have a chat function. If you have any questions on this topic and would like to address them to anybody within the panel today, please type them in and I'll add them to the chat and add them to the discussion. So first of all, I'd like to kick off by asking a question to David and to Alison, first of all. So can you tell us a little bit, to Dan and Alison, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences of raising funds in Wales?
Shall I go first, Dan?
Yeah, shoot.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So from our point of view, actually, the experience has been nothing but positive. And I think what's been really interesting was we went out for funding originally at the back end of 2017. And really unusually, we were pre-product and pre-revenue. So actually, even to get people to open doors and listen is pretty hard at that stage. And we found in Wales that was possible, was positive. And we've raised pre-seed and a seed A, and in fact a seed B. So we are just shy of £1 million worth of fundraising. Our principal investor from a Welsh perspective is the Development Bank of Wales, who are a relatively they're a relatively soft investor, right, compared to some of the VC funds. So they're supportive, they're patient, and actually help us to connect a lot across all sorts of different people in the ecosystem. I think what perhaps sways that a little bit is, we're a tech startup, we're a SaaS business, we're a scale up, we've got corporate clients now, and therefore it's relatively easy for us to show the returns that a VC or an early stage investor would expect to see. And I think that can be unusual when you're looking at some of the startups actually across the board, but particularly in Wales.
Yeah, so we raised just shy of $700,000. And majority of that was outside of Wales. In fact, majority of it was outside the UK in some cases. Our investors are from the US. I lived in Silicon Valley for a while, from Canada, Australia, the Middle East, and a lot from London, and a small bit from Wales at the start. But we really struggled to find the right kind of investors for us. We're very much high risk, pre-revenue. I feel like Wales is very conservative, especially at the seed and pre-seed stage. And there wasn't that many different options in Wales for funding compared to, Scotland or London, especially London. I think 80% of all funding comes from London anyway. So we struggled to raise in Wales, and that's why we had to go further afield, even all the way to Silicon Valley to raise money.
Thank you both. Yeah, so just following on from that, Dan, how did you make those connections outside of Wales?
A lot of hustle and a lot of networking, and a lot of going to the pub and wherever else with different investors and just networking. In Silicon Valley, I stood with a sign in the center about 5 minutes from Google and Facebook, and that's where I started networking out there to get myself known. And since then, I've still got that network, even despite COVID. So it's worth it. But yeah, just a lot of hustle and a lot of networking.
Okay, wonderful. So just moving on to a second question that I'd like to address to Dan and to Eamon is, how do you think the Welsh diaspora, the group that I was just speaking about, can help raise private seed capital? Do you think there is a potential for us to be able to do that?
Sure. So I think the first thing they can do, if they haven't done it already, is maybe sign up to GlobalWelsh. I remember when I was working in London, I was pleasantly surprised to see a GlobalWelsh event. I was like, what's this? Because you don't really see many Welsh networking events outside of Wales. And I think as in general, the diaspora, I don't know how great we are at networking with each other and shouting about our Welsh heritage and connecting and looking at deal flow specifically in Wales. I know with Mtivi, we raised 1.2 mil, and pretty much all of that was done in London. And it's such a much more vibrant ecosystem. So I think the idea of tapping into this collective power that exists out there is a really good one. So I would be recommending people sign up to GlobalWelsh, sign up to Angel Invest Wales. FinTech Wales is doing some amazing things. They've just launched their first accelerator. And that's a huge thing because there isn't an established accelerator here in Wales. And there's also lots of other things that need to be established. But the more support we get from our external diaspora network, it can only be a good thing. So I would say, don't stay silent. Sign up, help, get connected.
Cool.
Thanks, Eamon.
This was for me now, wasn't it? The next question. This question, yeah. I think obviously the long-term game is to have a few big exits in Wales, and that money is obviously naturally coming back in and reinvested. But until we get to that point, obviously there needs to be more seed funding. So I think the diaspora can really help with that with a diaspora fund, and that's the crucial stage of starting off on the journey is that seed stage, and there needs to be more opportunities in Wales because compared to Scotland's got a lot, North of England's got a lot, London's got everything, but in Wales we're really lacking on that front. So I think that's where the diaspora can really help out and fuel that future growth.
Yeah, thank you. Fantastic advice from both of you there. From the next question I'd like to address to David and Alison is, what do you think, or who do you think Wales can learn from when it comes to setting up tech funds? From your perspective, what kind of organizations could we look to that you've had good experiences with?
I think it's a pretty well-worn path, right? If you look at London, if you look at Berlin, if you look at the Valley, there's some very good established venture capital investor networks now, and those people are accessible to the GlobalWelsh, for example, network. In fact, some of the people in those industries are actually part of GlobalWelsh, so we have access to the insight and what good looks like. I think it's a little bit of what Dan said around we need some exits in Wales, right? If you look why London has become the centre that it's become the last decade, it's not because of anything other than you've had, I think now more than 60% of European unicorn companies valued at more than $1 billion have been established via London, and that creates a capital network of entrepreneurs reinvesting in entrepreneurs. And I think this, for me, is a little bit why this fund is important at GlobalWelsh, because I think it starts to stimulate that angel network, which gives two things. One is capital, but the second thing it does give is expertise, because the other thing these people can bring is, of course, access to their networks. And people who've been on successful entrepreneurial journeys can connect entrepreneurs who are on their current journey to the kind of additional capital, because it isn't just early stage capital that you need. Companies need capital throughout their life, and the right network and the right contacts on your board can help you to then raise capital as you grow and evolve. So I think it's those two things are the key part of it.
Yeah, and I would echo a bunch of stuff that David's just talked about. And actually to reiterate what Dan talked about, you've got to have exits, right, for people to go, yes, it's worth it, and there's a reason for us doing it. I think Wales does a lot right, actually. I think there are some elements that are really good. So there's a really good ecosystem between education and the startups. Yeah, and that's great. We've had support from Cardiff University, University of South Wales, the Data Innovation Accelerator from also out of Cardiff University. So there's a lot in those pieces that I think are done right. But if you look at the States, if you look at, in the Boston area, if you look at this kind of ecosystem that's joining up the funds, the educational, the networks, the investors, that's not there yet for the reasons that we've talked about. I think that there are, for me, two really key points. We need to learn about fast money. Yeah, we need to learn about convertible loan notes and kind of some of the riskiest stuff that the US is prepared to do, because actually that helps a business to scale and scale quickly and to figure out whether it's going to work or not work. And I think we need to learn how to support our scale up businesses, which is what David was referring to, is how do we create follow-on money? Pre-seed and seed is great. We're now bang smack in the middle of scale up. We're not yet at Series A, and so you kind of get lost in this kind of space of Series A is increasingly becoming bigger and bigger, and therefore there's this space between a seed and a Series A that's missing. And I think London's really good at doing that, and I think the States are really good at doing it. I hear Scotland is, but I have no experience of that. So yeah, I think fast money, different types of money, and scale up money would be really interesting. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, we've just got a message from Nan on the chat that she says she totally agrees with David, and scale up is as important as a startup, and thinks that a collaboration across many Welsh organisations, including GlobalWelsh, is key. So we need that collaboration right across the board, and we see a lot of it accelerating. Do you agree? Do you agree that that we need more of this collaboration? This is open to everyone.
Without a doubt, and I think we'll kind of talk about this a little bit when we talk about some of the downfalls. But I think at the moment the pool is quite small, right? Particularly for some of the angel investors, and they don't want to be hit by a new fund from GlobalWelsh and from Angels Invest Wales and from every single startup business that's in the. It's kind of like there's only a few of us. Yeah, it needs to be in one place, in one forum, with a joined up message. And an integrated network that helps to bring more people to the fore. Yeah, that's right. The coherent message. So you brought up the downfalls. Are there any other downfalls that you think we're having in Wales? This is open to everyone.
I think one thing we can do, which I think Estonia is doing very well, is they're encouraging the best tech talent to come into Estonia, and obviously that's why the Bay Area and London, these places are so good. It's attracting the best talent. So also you've got the organic original people there, but you're bringing in the best externally. So there's a lot we can do in Wales to encourage more entrepreneurs to come in. We're only 2 hours from London. it's really cheap to live here. It's a great place to set up a tech company. So I think we need to be shouting about it more and bringing the best into Wales. It's obviously the funding will follow, and the more exits will follow that as well. So that's something I think we can do to really push ourselves up on the global stage.
Yeah, and to follow on from Dan's point, I would love to work with the Welsh government and say, look, our labour market analytics platform tells you exactly where the tech talent is in the UK. I'd love to work with the Welsh government and go, look, this is where the pools of skilled talent are. Come on, let's help you use this to get some FDI in. That's not necessarily one of the downfalls. So I think the downfall that I would bring up, and it links to what Dan said, none of our angel investors are from Wales. And none of them are at the kind of small bitty amounts that we see quite often in cap tables in some of the Welsh companies. We needed big, high-profile investors who could help us. So we were quite smart. We wanted really smart money. And not that there isn't smart money in Wales. There is. It's just that there's not very many, or there's not very many, obviously, and therefore they get kind of spread quite thin. I think that's really hard for people.
Yeah, I think for me, there's kind of three big things that are yet to be established, and we've kind of touched on some of them already. So, those second, third generation founders getting exits and coming back and helping the economy, some type of centralized VC fund that's established, and it can take maybe more risks than things like DevBank. I think the other thing that's glaringly missing to me as a founder, having come back here and scale businesses in London, is there's no established founders network. So, a network which is run for the founders, and it's exclusive just for founders, and it's almost like you help each other. So, you give each other the lowdown on the high net worth, the angel investors, the VCs, you connect each other. And I think until those things get established, we're going to be kind of slightly hamstrung by how much we can do. I think the exciting thing is there's lots of conversations going on. I think we're at this nascent stage where hopefully in the next year or so they get landed. But a lot of that, I think it's up for the founders to step up. It's not just we need this, we need that externally. It's what can we do as a collective to make ourselves more powerful.
Yeah, and I think particularly with this idea of getting the founders together, I think that's one thing GlobalWelsh is hoping to do with the business memberships, is to be able to get all of these people into forums online and create specific groups even within our Connect platform to keep all these founders together so that they have this network and they're able to communicate with each other and then learn what's going, and then be able to spread that message outside of Wales as well. Definitely. What kind of advice would you all have to anybody that was looking for investment right now, post-COVID, going into the next phase? What advice would you all have for any new tech startups in Wales with regard to funding?
I think for me, it's two things, and it's almost similar to what I said before. I think I've been surprised by the number of founders I've talked to, early stage startups here, who don't know some basic principles around fundraising. So they're not clued up on SEIS or EIS. They're not clued up on how to do valuations. And the research is out there. You only need to go onto a Y Combinator or some other accelerator that's not in the UK. Techstars has got a whole lot of collateral. And I'm like, do your research first of all. I think that's really, really important. I think the second thing is talk to as many people as possible. Just because you've talked to DevBank, I'm using DevBank as an example, or one person, and they turn you down, doesn't mean you're going to get turned down from everyone. Get out there. And you know what? It pains me to say, but get on the train to Bristol, get on the train to London, and don't restrict yourself. Talk to as many people as possible. So those are my two things.
Thanks, Eamon. Yeah, very good advice.
I'd say a little bit to follow on from Eamon, keep at it, right? Yeah, 100 coffees, 100 days. That's what I did. It was just like, and every coffee I said, who do you know that I should be talking to? Because I need to be in front of people to get money, because the only way I'm going to do this is by really focusing on it. I think generally speaking, if you're going to set up a tech business, you've got to be brave enough to do it. You can't hold a foot in one camp or the other. So if you're in a job right now and going, oh, I'm going to part-time invest, it just doesn't work. You've got to jump in with both feet and be brave and be bold and be confident, because the message that sends to your potential investors is really strong. And then this, I think, is this is reflective of some of the businesses I've met in Wales, and I've met some brilliant businesses in Wales. but think big and think global. You know, so many of them think small and aren't kind of thinking about the global market from the outset. And yet there's a massive opportunity with some of the products and services that I've seen for them to take them global.
Yeah, that's definitely from being outside of Wales. I can see the potential. I can see, you know, if somebody came to me and said, I want to open part of my business in Japan and Tokyo. Okay, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm on the ground, I can help. And there are people like me in other countries around the world that want to do this for Welsh businesses. So we need to be thinking more globally and being able to look at it from that direction. And how about you?
Yeah, for me, my biggest advice would be learn from every no. It's very easy when you're fundraising to take it personally. But, you know, similar to what Alison said, you know, you could be having 100 pitches, but the 101 person says yes. So it's to go into it with a fresh face and to learn from every no, because it's not always a no. There's a reason why it's no. It might be not just yet. It might be I don't get the idea. It might be, you know, things need to change slightly. So learn from every no and take advantage of that connection and utilize it in the future. You know, every connection is worthwhile. Every pitch is worthwhile. So just put yourself out there and just don't take a no personally. Just learn from it and move forward. And yeah, eventually you'll raise what you need.
I think just to build on all those points, I would add that, you know, remember that while, you know, this is looking through the world through a Welsh lens, capital is global. And so when you're competing for it as an entrepreneur, you know, it's great. All the benefits of being in Wales, we all understand. But also the reality as an entrepreneur, you're competing against entrepreneurs from the Valley, London, Berlin, when you're trying to chase capital. And so go and benchmark yourself, go and benchmark your pitch with the things that Eamon alluded to, with the very best seed incubators, and see the quality of your entrepreneurial competitors and their business models and their pitches, and do a little bit of, I would say, almost groundwork like you would in any form of professional life, to make sure that when you come to raise capital, yes, you've got.
Oh, David's just.
We've lost David. I knew he had to. Oh, he's back. David, you're on mute. Oh, there we go.
Have you got me now?
Yes, great.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, just making sure you do your homework in terms of comparing yourself was the key point with all the best tech hubs that exist, you know, here in the UK and wider.
But also there's something about recognising that, you know, Welsh diaspora are still going to want to invest in businesses that are going to give them great returns. You know, don't just assume that because you're a business that's in Wales, you're going to get some money. You know, they're doing this for a reason. So, you know, if that's the door opener, awesome. But you've still got to be able to prove that you've got a business that is an investable business.
Yeah, very true. Very true. What advice, or not what advice, what one message would you like to give the diaspora in terms of, as I mentioned in the presentation, there seems to be this gap between the people outside of Wales not really knowing what is going on inside Wales. If you had one thing you could tell them about the tech industry in Wales right now, what would it be? It's a tough question.
I think for me, it's keep an eye out on the fintech scene in Cardiff. I think that's definitely up and coming. There's a few big names coming up, and you know, a few quite large sort of late seed Series A raises going on right now, which is quite exciting. So I think the fintech scene in Cardiff is really picking up. So keep an eye on that, and that's where your money should probably be going.
Well, easy. We're not a fintech business, Dan.
I don't want to start anything now.
I would focus people on the stuff I think Ireland did well 10, 15 years ago, which is talking up the benefits of the Irish education system, the Irish economy, the links that it had in their case to the US. So I think what I would say to people is that, you know, Wales has a lot going for it. Dan touched on, we're 2 hours from London. You know, for example, we've got two great world-class universities that produce a lot of talent, bright people. We have a lot of entrepreneur network. Look at GlobalWelsh that have built amazing businesses, often outside of Wales, but actually people who are linked to Wales. So Wales, I think what I'd say to people is actually look at the substance of the reality of Wales. It's got a hell of a lot going for it. But at the same time, what I then challenge Wales to do is say, we've got to talk about that and be really clear strategically. What are the 2 or 3 key messages, a bit like Ireland did 15, 20 years ago, that Wales has? And I think if we can get that right, there's a great message to be spoken about.
Yeah, absolutely. One question has just come in from the comment section, and I'm conscious that we only have around 7 minutes left. And there's a question from Lawrence Wood that I'd like to address. It says, if you had the opportunity to self-fund your tech startup, should you do it? Or is there a reason beyond cash that equity investment should be considered? For example, mentoring or support, etc. And this question looks like it's open to everyone. So if you had the opportunity to self-fund, should you do it? Any
That's
thoughts?
go for it. Sorry, Eamon.
I think for me, it's about your aspiration. How big do you want to go? You know, you can self-fund and grow a good-sized business, but it might take you 10 years. Or your aspirations might be, I want this to be a global fintech business, in which case I need to raise big. I know many ideas that have gone out there that said, we're going to be this global platform, yet when you look at how much they're raising, it's next to nothing. And when you know how much everyone else is raising, you know, it's a bit of an arms race. So you need to be tooled up in order to win. So I think it's about the founder's aspiration ultimately. And, you know, I think the founders need to look at themselves and go, you know, how much sweat equity do I want to give away? How much capital do I want to raise now? Where do I see the business in 4 or 5 years' time? So I'd say, sorry to Lawrence, there isn't one size fits all question for that. You know, I said, what does he want to do?
What I would add there, Eamon, is that for an entrepreneur, actually, even if you can afford to self-fund or your family and friends can support you, I would still go and validate it with a proper angel network or some investors, because, you know, we all believe our child is the most beautiful. We all believe our ideas are the best. The reality is, you know, you need independent scrutiny, because you can end up losing your own money through self-funding. Just because, of course, you should have massive conviction as an entrepreneur on your idea, but go and validate that, because, well, you will get some intelligent feedback about how clever it really is. And maybe you might hear that some people are already doing this stuff.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And just to kind of build on that, there's also, so FinTech Wales' accelerator, which they're about to announce the first cohort, that's a no equity accelerator. So you have to go through a process to get on there. Someone's going to kick your tires, and then once you're on there, you get a whole load of support. So why wouldn't you do that as an early stage startup?
I think I'd say to Lawrence, we all have a tendency when we're starting a business to say, what do I need? What money do I need? And I think that it's really interesting to go back on yourself and say, what could I do with? You know, so you move from this need to this kind of, you know, actually what's the magic button, and you're going to land somewhere in between. But that comes back to your opportunity to scale and how fast you want to scale and where you can do it. I think I didn't take any friends or family money at all in our pre-seed round, because I wanted people to buy into the idea. I didn't want them to buy into me. I knew I could persuade them, right? But it was almost, that was my stress test for, is this a product that's going to go somewhere? And can I put it into English, and do people get it, and will they give me some money? And then for us, I can only say that the angel investors that we've got, there is not one of them that doesn't bring value to our business in some way, shape or form that is way over and above their money, whether that's their experience of tech, their experience of scaling, or their networks. Yeah, and I think that's something that, Lawrence, if you're thinking about self-funding, really question yourself on, because there's an opportunity to open doors quite quickly.
What's Lawrence's surname? My son is called Lawrence. I hope it's not him.
It's Lawrence Wood.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Who also said, thank you, very, very interesting feedback. Thank you very much.
He might be asking for some friends and family money, David, if you're not careful.
Secretly going in through the back door. Dan, do you want to make a comment as well?
I did, but it's just gone.
Okay, well, we're just about running out of time as well, so I'm going to wrap things up now. First of all, thank you so much, Alison, Eamon, Dan, and David, for your really insightful comments. Fantastic engagement with the topic, and for encouraging everybody. I feel very encouraged myself. I want to go and start a business in Wales now too. I'll be on the first flight back. But thank you so much for everyone at Week as well, for inviting GlobalWelsh in particular, to help us to spread this message and to help us to show what is going on in Wales, what's fantastic about the tech industry and entrepreneurship in Wales, and how we can keep supporting that as we move forward. But I think the key message we've all discussed today, I think, is that the fact that we do need a collaborative message that comes out of Wales to say, this is what's going on. These are the people that's doing it. These are the people that can help you if you want to do it. And there's a lot of possibility for the future. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm thrilled to have been able to meet you and to talk with you today. And I hope you all have a great rest of the afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.